Welcome to the Podcast Rodeo Show. I'm your host, Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting. If you're new to the show, this is where we grab a random podcast and see how long we can hang on. And today, we're going to be taking a look at I thought this was 8theworld. It's actually the number 8, the world. Get it? 8theworld. And actually in Apple Podcast, it's the number 8, the world, all one word, conversations with home cooks from around the world. Their description is the host, Rob Lewis, a home cook, talks about recipes, inspiration, ingredients, and the challenges of cooking different cuisines. Each week features a guest cook who will share stories about their best dishes and cooking tips for listeners who want to learn about different cultures. So my first thing would be, if you went to your audience and you said, hey, I'm doing a show called 8theworld, what would you search to go find me in a podcast directory? I'm putting big money on they're not going to type in 8theworld, all one word. So that's my very first impression is I'm not sure about that. We're going to listen to episode 15, so he is fairly new at this. And also on your website at the top, you have this far-flung food adventure close to home in very light gray letters on a kind of gray background, which again, for my old eyes, I'm old, makes it hard to read. But hey, before we get to the actual episode, let me remind you of one thing, and that is...
The following is an opinion, and only an opinion. These are actual, honest first impressions. If you don't like the opinion, feel free to never listen again.
All right, and this is episode 15. It is titled, it's got to be more than this. Nope, episode 15 is just called well, in the app, it says episode 15, Nicole K. So I don't know who Nicole K is. Is that it? Nope, that's it, Nicole K. So I don't know who Nicole K is, and so consequently, that doesn't really make me want to click on it, but nonetheless, I'm going to, and it sounds like this. Wait, hold on, did I hit a button wrong? Let me try that again. I hit play, this is what you get.
For the 15th podcast, my guest is Nicole K., also known as Provisions to Nourish. Nicole.
That is a very boomy microphone. Live from the bathroom, it's 8theworld. All right, I'll keep going.
Nicole is an all-star at meal planning, fridge diving, and stretching prepared ingredients across multiple meals and different recipes. We made a braised beef dish, and we'll discuss all the meals that we were able to stretch out of a one-pot meat preparation.
Okay.
Nicole, welcome to the 8theworld podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just get into the meal that we made or the recipe that you suggested and go from there.
Sure. I selected the braised beef with lots and lots of onions simply because I thought it might be difficult to dive into your fridge. I didn't know if you'd be open to that. And I know that you make the same dish as your guests on the podcast, and it just lends itself so well to converting into leftovers. I thought that would be a fun recipe for you to try.
I mean, to be honest, it was pretty easy.
Oh, yes.
And I was surprised at the variety of the dishes I was able to derive from it. What did you start with, and what did you end up making from that?
So I started with the roast and just cooked it pretty traditionally. I threw some potatoes in at the end of the braise and did some brown butter, maple syrup, glazed carrots to go on the side. The following evening, I converted the meal into risotto. And those onions, they cooked down into these like wonderful, almost like French onion soup onions. That just, for some reason, I decided that I wanted to try that in a risotto, and it worked out really well. I added some beef broth and a bunch of cheese and a little sour cream at the end and some fried onions on top.
Oh, wonderful.
It was really delicious. And then the following evening, I made sandwiches. I shredded up the beef and put together a little horseradish mayo, just some odd bits of cheese that were in the fridge, a little bit.
Some interesting jump cuts going on here where all of a sudden and I'm kind of listening through the ears of a podcaster, but I'm impressed that you're editing, but the sound of a good edit is you don't notice that it's being edited.
That were in the fridge, a little bit of Munster, a little Fontina, I believe some white cheddar, and a little arugula. And then in the remainder of the soup that I created with the onions from the pot, we dipped the sandwiches into the soup. And with all the snow and the freezing temperatures we've had, it was just kind of great comfort food over those few days.
This guest, and this is not your fault, this guest ends a lot of her questions with a lot of her statements with a question. We're doing things and the onions. And that personally, once I notice it, I can't unhear it.
Over those few days.
Absolutely. What kind of bread did you use?
For the sandwiches?
Yes.
Sandwiches?
For the sandwiches, I just used more of a sandwich loaf, an Italian loaf. Typically,
loaf?
That's not the type of bread that we're eating. Usually we're eating homemade sourdough or a peasant bread that I like to make, but that just seemed appropriate for the sandwiches that I was making.
Back in an early Instagram post, you had Audrey, who I guess is the name of your sourdough starter.
Yes, Audrey is my starter.
Is she still with you?
She is. She just turned 4 years old on January 3rd, and I've been baking with her again. I put her away for most of the pandemic. So far, I feel like the world started making sourdough, and I kept her in my fridge for a while. And I've recently brought her back out again, and I've been taking her for a spin, and she's been producing some really excellent loaves.
Yeah, we leaned into the pandemic cliches pretty hard. So got the rescue puppy, started the sourdough, and did all of that. But I think after 3 or 4...
That was another bad edit.
4 months of feeding and caring and tending, I put it away and just said, enough. It just started to be a lot more work. That being said, the pictures...
To the puppy or the sourdough? I'm just saying.
The pictures that you have of all the different sourdough loaves that you've made are absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoy making sourdough. I don't know why or when at a point for me that just became a bridge too far. It just was something that I needed to set aside for a while, and I'm glad I did, because I've been able to come back with enthusiasm. And I just shared some of my starter last night, and I don't know what that one will be named, but one of Audrey's babies will grow into something wonderful here hopefully soon for someone else.
Isn't that great? It's the gift that keeps giving.
I love it. And I know people that have had starters. One of my Instagram friends, she's from Canada and she lives in the UK now. And so hers traveled from Canada to the UK. Someone that lives in the States, theirs started in Australia. And that's just really interesting to me, because it's living and breathing. I just think there's something wonderful about that.
For the braised meat, did you add anything to the braising liquid besides the wine that the recipe called for?
All right, and if you're new to the show, that sound effect means I was very close to giving this the buzzer. And I'm the reason I didn't is because that woman's voice is on my nerves, and that's not your fault. Now, the way she sounds is your fault, not the fact that everything she says sounds like a question. That's not it. She has something running in the background, and that's how I can tell you're doing these edits. And that's where you got to go, hey, honey. Well, don't say honey. That's disrespectful. But all of a sudden I turn to Dice Clay. Hey, honey, turn off the air conditioning. Oh, that wouldn't be good. So, but she's got a pretty noisy back. Her audio is pretty bad. Your audio is incredibly boomy. My guess is I'm smelling a Blue Yeti that is set to pick up in every direction, and you've got it about 2.5 feet from your desk. That would be my guess. Very, very boomy audio. I did like the fact, now here's the thing, I like the fact that you got right to the recipe, but here's the thing. Maybe it's because I'm not a chef. I would like to know where we're going. And I almost want to go back and listen and see if I missed it. Because this is what I expected. Today I'm going to interview Stephanie or whatever her name was. The dish is this. To make this dish, if you want to make this with us, here are the ingredients you're going to need. yada, yada, yada. And then I would definitely plug your website, and I would definitely spell it out. Go out to 8theworld. That's the number 8, theworld.com, and, /15. And we have all the ingredients there, because whoever is going, this is for people who like to cook. Then for me, I'm looking for tips and tricks on how to make this. So you had some things there about sourdough that were some tips and tricks. That's good. But kind of walk me through, I think, is kind of what I expected. Like, okay, well, first you got to brown your meat, and I guess tell me how to cook it. And then if there's anything like, oh, look, if you undercook this, and if you don't add the onions first, and if you don't, all those things that you only learn from making the dish at least once and ruining it. That's where you learn those tips and tricks. So it seemed, on one hand, it was very nice. You're just having a conversation, but I just remember thinking, and it might be because I was taking notes or something, but I just thought, wait, where are we? I'm not following and maybe this is a video, maybe that's part of it too. But to me, I need something to trigger the theater of the mind of where am I? Let me see take the onions and you do them in a pan or something like that. So I like the fact that you got right to the recipe. And then just for me, I needed a little structure on kind of, here's where we're going to go. Here's what you have to do, and say, so to make this dish, you're going to need this, this, and that. You're going to broil this, you're going to bake that, and then you're going to, curdle the cream and throw it on top, blah, blah, blah. And then tell me all the tips and tricks out of it. Now, that's how I would do it. It's your podcast. Do with it what you want. So a couple things I would change. I would definitely work on your audio. That was pretty horrendous. I do see where you have subscribe buttons on your player from Buzzsprout. I would add a subscribe link at the top of your page. Now, normally I don't comment on your website, but I just tell everybody that it's all about subscribers. And for the record, that verbiage is going to change very soon. Apple's going to start calling it followers in the line of Spotify, because, well, subscribe sounds like you have to basically buy something, and they're getting away from that. So fix the audio. Like I said, I like the fact that your intro came on. You got right to the stuff. And let me go back to the very beginning of this show. I want to hear the very, very, very beginning of your intro. Oh, that was it. It started off like you started the music in the middle. Let's hear that one more time here. Yeah, that sounds like you dropped I'm going to date myself. You dropped the needle in the middle of the record. And does it...
For the 15th podcast, my guest is Nicole Kay.
You didn't introduce the show. Welcome to 8theworld, where we do blah, 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 whatever your tagline is there, not the far-flung food adventures. You have it as conversations with home cooks from around the world. So I would throw that in there too. Welcome to 8theworld, conversations with home cooks from around the world. I'm your host, Robert Lewis, or Rob to my friends. And today I'm interviewing Nicole, and then go from there, and then just maybe come up with a bit of a structure. Keep it free flowing, but I don't know what I was expecting, but that's why I kind of was like, And part of it is I microwave almost everything I eat. I'm not a big fan of cooking. I love to eat, but, and that's why I was kind of interested. I wanted to hear what to do. And this, I don't know if this is a video as well. There isn't any video on your website. This is, as you might imagine, listed in the food category of Apple Podcast. And I'll have links to this out in the show notes, out at our website, podcastrodeoshow.com. If you'd like to get reviewed, it's super simple, podcastrodeoshow.com, top of the screen, get reviewed, and you will have your podcast right here, not only in front of my ears, and remember, it's just an opinion, but also in front of all the fans that listen to this show. And some of them are going, hey, hit play on that again. I wasn't done. Well, go over to 8theworld.com, the number 8. And trust me, you're going to want to, I used to have a name of my consulting business was Podcast Fast Pass. And I had to over enunciate it every time. I work for a company called Libsyn, and I have to spell it all the time. LIBSYN, it's short for Liberated Syndication. And when you have to explain your name about the 14 millionth time you do that, you're like, I'm changing the name. So Thanks so much for listening. PodcastRodeoShow.com. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, reminding you that there is always room for improvement.